What up, everybody? I'm your host, JP. This is my co-host, Josh.
Hey, everyone.
And welcome back to another episode of the FilmBros podcast. What's up, everybody? So today, we're going to do something different. We're doing something different today. Today, we are going to be reacting and basically having a conversation about Anthony and Joe Russo's new Peaks of Film School episode with Zack Snyder. They're a YouTube channel where they basically talk to different directors, and Anthony and Joe Russo are also directors of Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War. They made I believe it's called Apple, or a movie with Tom Holland on Apple TV. As of recently, they made The Gray Man on Netflix. They are masterclass directors, and they just bring directors on, and they just talk about their experiences, and they discuss in detail of how their processes go behind the scenes of movies. So they brought Zack Snyder on this episode, and they are talking about his version of Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Before we jump into this episode, I just wanted to say, very in particular, we picked this episode to kind of react to because, well, we're Zack Snyder's fans, right? Like, you like his movies,
Yeah.
I like his movies.
Mm-hmm.
I like other directors' movies as well. If this is a series that you guys want to see continue to go on, I mean, let us know, and we'll do more episodes and react to other episodes that they have.
But real quick, before we get into the breakdown, let's hear a quick word from our sponsor, ZippyStream.
Today's episode is sponsored by ZippyStream. If you are wondering how we make money to run our podcast, it's all because of this innovative platform. Here at FilmBros Podcast, we absolutely love using ZippyStream. It's the easiest way to convert listeners into an email list, but best of all, they find us sponsorship so we can keep making money doing what we love.
Suppose you're also a podcaster thinking about starting one. ZippyStream will help you find and manage a relationship with brands that are relevant to your audience. If you want to learn more, contact us as soon as possible. Everyone that signs up this month will get to claim £10 as a joining bonus, which is around $12 or something like that.
Just reach out to us by email or social media DMs, and I'll put you in touch with the guys at ZippyStream right away. Now back to the pod. Their YouTube channel is AGBO, so if you guys want to see the full video, go over there, check them out. And yeah, you ready to jump right in?
Basically, let's just do it.
All right, so starting off, I basically queued up some scenes. So like I said, if you guys are trying to see the full episode, go check it out on their YouTube page. We will be clipping out some scenes to basically give full context. So there'll be clips in this episode. So if you guys want to watch it in its entirety first, go watch it in its entirety and then come back and have the conversation with us. All right, let's jump right in.
Yeah.
All right, let's get it.
To talk a little bit from soup to nuts. As filmmakers, is something we sit in awe of, with the complexity of visual effects that you bring to a movie. It's beyond what I think just about anyone can do on the planet.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I'd love to get behind that a little bit and talk a little bit about your background. You started as a painter, correct?
Yeah, so I wasn't awesome at high school, at the normal math, but the normal stuff.
Yeah.
I was pretty good at PE. I'll be honest.
Right brain,
But,
left brain. You were a left brain.
Yeah, a little bit on the left. I'd gotten kicked out of my boarding school and ended up in public school. I had pretty much all my requirements to graduate. I think I had to take a history class, and at Ramapo High School in Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, is where I ended up. I had been at this small boarding school in Connecticut, and ended up in public school. And I remember I went in there, and I had a tie on the first day and a blazer.
Stark difference.
And the guy was like, "Are you gonna wear a
Yeah.
tie every day?" I was like, "It's cool not to. Okay, that's fine."
Did you wear it day two? No.
Day two, I think I just wore the blazer.
Yeah.
'Cause I didn't feel like it was cool not to wear a blazer.
And what is it what got you kicked out of your, if you don't
Well,
mind me asking?
I like to think that I'd been making a film in my boarding school, and it was kind of like a remake of Apocalypse Now, but sort of set in our boarding school, and like one of the kids is sort of Kurt's. Well, the principal was Kurt's, and the kid goes to like, he doesn't murder him or anything. It wasn't like that, you know. That's frowned upon. But how he goes sort of insane through his like pursuit of the headmaster. But anyway, so it turned out to be like, you know, slightly controversial, and I like to think that's what it was. I think there were some other things, but
The headmaster wasn't on board with his interpretation.
no, yeah, like, you know. So I like to think it was the film that got me fully expelled, and they trumped up some other charges. But I think it was.
That's amazing.
But, they didn't really have a strong art department, art sort of focus at my boarding school. But when I got to public school, yeah, exactly. When I got to public school, I because I had most of my requirements to graduate, I just decided to take like 3 art classes. I could take 3 art classes back to back in the morning, and then I think I had my history class, and then pretty much PE for the rest of the day. It was pretty great. And so instead of taking AP classes, that's what I did, because I could have, you know, done that, but I decided not to do it. And so I was able to really generate a pretty great art portfolio. So then I went to this school in London called Heatherley's and was studying to be a painter, even though I had done films and shot movies, you know, all through high school, and that was kind of my hobby. I just was, you know, when I, you know, I was a senior in high school, and I just felt like being a painter was weirdly romantic, and so thought I would do that. But then during my course of studies in London at Heatherley's, my art advisor, and maybe because my paintings were horrible, she said, you know, you really loved making these movies, and your paintings are really cinematic. You know, they're always like, you know, is that a thing? And I said, oh, maybe that. I do love making movies, and that was fun. And you know, I always thought that would be cool, but you know, I always thought, can I be a movie director? That feels like a big ask, you know. So I sent out for a bunch of film school catalogs, and the Art Center College of Design catalog here up in Pasadena came, and I totally judged it by the cover, completely. Said like, this is where I want to go to school, because it was like a black catalog with an orange dot on it, right? No words. I was like, this.
That's cool.
This is
Sophisticated.
crazy. Yeah, I was like, this is intense. So, and I think the inside, I remember there was a picture in the film department. It was like there was like students on a crane with a Panavision camera, and the guy was pointing. And I was like, that's rad.
So right there, we get a little bit of his background. Now, I mean, we barely got into the scene. You probably don't know. He used to be a painter. He used to go to art school, like he was saying. Right now, we're gonna see how that he's gonna talk about how it kind of helps with his work. But I feel like being a painter is somewhat necessary. I mean, they say it's not necessary because, I mean, obviously you're just basically directing, you know what I mean? You're not, you don't really need to be in that department. There's concept artists, directors, writers and drawers for that. And I think it's a good necessity. And I feel like that's what kind of helps set apart him from other directors. Whereas other directors, they probably don't know how to draw. I mean, I think we seen on Twitter the other day that David F. Sandberg basically said, oh, this is how I did my concept art, right? Yeah. And he basically, it was like a stick figure with an arrow pointing up, and then, you know, a toy that he was using, and kind of like was like, oh, this is how it's going to happen, kaploosh or whatever. Yeah. And I feel like artistry would probably go a long way if, you know, especially in your imagination, right? Like if you have an artist's imagination, which all directors are artists, I think movies are a form of art. But to have that extra edge where, you know, you can visualize it, put it down not only on screen but on a piece of paper as well, that has to help out with, you know. That's why they call him visionary, I believe.
Well, yeah, because it all translates to the movie. What do you call it? From the concept art to the actual idea to the film. You're like, oh yeah, I want this to look like this. This is like in my head. This is what I see. How do we take that into live action? So yeah, I'm sure that helps him go a long way.
Yeah, we're gonna listen in a little bit more, but he goes a little bit more in detail.
But to this day, I draw like 90% of the storyboards for all the movies. I draw all myself, and so it's super exhausting. And I don't recommend that. No, but but it's just the way I've always done it. And even then, I really meticulously drew everything before we shot. And I think and I think frankly that's what's helped me. I think in the visual effects, with the visual effects sort of components of the movies I make, kind of understanding what elements would be VFX.
Well, they're very rich and textured, and the use of light is very painterly. It wasn't until I found out, did a little research a few years ago, I was like, how does he do this? And I found out you had a background as a painter. I went, okay, that all makes sense now. Because one of the hardest things to do on movies of scale is communicate vision, right? Because that vision has to be translated to thousands of people. And anywhere along the way, that vision can get corrupted, right? Because there's an artist somewhere in London, right, who makes a decision, on a sequence that suddenly sets off a whole different, lighting pattern for that sequence. And it's, when you're working on movies that are this ginormous, you have to keep your arms around it in a way.
And it's hard to.
And you have to communicate. It's really hard.
Yeah.
But communication is critical, and it was something that we introduced. Anthony and I started saying we should be doing keyframes, critical keyframes, where we're bringing in every member of our key department, our A operator, our DP, production designer, and everyone is contributing to these keyframes per sequence, right? Great. So the process we would use is we would have a keyframe that was distributed to everyone. It was on set. We'd blow it up. It'd be in the corner. Everyone knew exactly what we're trying to accomplish.
So sort of like, this is the look depth. This is
it.
Everybody understands. This is where we want to be.
Yeah. So right there, he basically says it helps with the translation, right? The translation's a lot better. You give somebody where I have to go to you to be like, hey, I think that he needs to have these spikes on his shoulders and that, like Steppenwolf or whatever, be shiny, shimmery, and, your imagination is not the same as theirs, so what you may be thinking, they might not be thinking the same way, and they're going to be building it a different way. And then eventually it's probably going to get to the point where it's like close enough, right? And it's just going to be the way that it is. But if, he can go to the paper, draw it out himself, make it look so crisp and clean that there's no room for misinterpretation.
Yeah.
Hands it over. There has to be a reason why, and they go a little bit more in depth how it helps with lighting and, the little extras on set. But I mean, that's a great way, in my opinion, to go about it as a director. Because as you can see, the way that they were explaining it, it sounds more of a process, right? Like, you gotta go talk to these people, gotta let them know, gotta reiterate just in case, and it seems like just a longer, tedious process.
Exactly. If we could just have everyone in the room be like, "This is what I want. This is it," and just show them like a picture, drawing, whatever, it'll get your point across much faster.
Yeah, I think it's honestly it's something to do. Like he even said earlier, like to be a filmmaker, you don't necessarily need to be a painter, right? But I think that should be somewhat of a requirement. At least being able to draw, you know what I mean, or at least being able to put your imagination down on something. I mean, using toys and stick figures, that's one thing, but man, to be able to get somebody who can draw it out for you first, put it on a bunch of concept art pages and stuff like that, every single scene if they wanted to, that has to, I mean, it's more work obviously, but I feel like as a director,
all for your vision.
Yeah, exactly. If as a director, don't be afraid to put in that extra work. And I always feel like that kind of translates with Zack Snyder. I feel like he actually takes that time because he's just like, I want to put something out that I'm going to be proud of. You know what I mean? Exactly. Whereas other directors, there are a lot of company directors that are just like, well, I have to do this, and we have to do like at least 5 takes because we need to be able to produce something because hierarchy is there. And I'm sure Anthony and Joe Russo, having worked under Kevin Feige, understand that pressure and know what comes with that.
Basically, yeah.
But yeah, so this next scene, we're basically gonna hear him kind of. I kind of wanted to just go over that just to give a little bit of background and context before he starts diving into the Justice League aspect. Just to, because I personally never knew he had a painter's background, but it does make a lot of sense why his movies come out the way that they do versus a lot of other directors because, like I said, I don't want to compare the two because David F. Sandberg is fairly new to the scene and he's only made horror, but like his way of concept art, from what he showed us on the internet versus what the concept art that we've seen Zack Snyder to post and, on the internet is completely different. You know what I mean?
Two different things for sure.
So in this next scene, he's basically going to speak about how consistency is kept within his movies.
On the ladder, there's still 1,000 guys that are, contributing. So yeah,
For sure, exactly.
How are you doing it? How are you creating that consistency?
I think it's in a similar way. A really good friend of mine, this guy Jared Parrington, who I work with on a lot of. Basically, I'll do a sketch and send it to him, and he'll knock up a giant painting of it. That's really, and we'll go back and forth on it, and it's basically the same thing. Like, I really try and generate as much art as I can on a sequence, or even the set design and everything. The problem is like when you draw the storyboard, and I'm like, oh, the door really needs to be hinged on this side, because I'm going to be like because you drew the whole sequence. But a lot of times, at first I found that those kinds of details weren't necessarily, everyone would be like, oh, like how seriously does he take these these drawings?
The door really need to be on the right.
Does it really need to be like?
Yeah,
Oh, that's a nice image.
It's cool, but and I think that over time, that one part of it, as far as the specificity of the drawings, and like, look, it really does need to, in order, because if you flip the door, it kind of, everything's, like when he opens it now, he's covered. You see, like you can't, so like all of that ripples. And so, but for me, like the sort of creation of those, in a very similar way to what you do, these kind of keyframes, and they'll be, depending how much I like the scene, or I'm into it, or it's really fussy, there might be, a number of those kinds of paintings that I do for particular sequences. Then I just try and really get at the drawings really carefully. And I do find it a really great tool just to get everybody on the same page. What happens is I start to split off from the script a little bit, right? Because what happens is when I draw the storyboards, because I'm kind of blocking, the first blocking pass is what I do with the drawings. Because when I'm drawing, I'll be like, if I had written the script and then drew it, the rewrite in the drawings happens a little bit. Maybe a little dialogue tweak, because like if I'm drawing like, oh, it's an over and then some close-ups or whatever, and I'll write the dialogue under the drawing, and sometimes I'd find like, oh, I wrote that, they come in the room and then there's like a walk and talk over to the guy, but it doesn't really work because, the room's really not as big as I thought it was, and, whatever. So I can kind of do that first sort of level of, it's not editing so much as it is kind of doing the puzzling it out. So
almost the topography of the movie.
Yeah, and
So what you think about that?
Damn, they make it sound so like fancy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Damn, I could not put that into words. It sounds like so much to take in of what they're talking about. Yeah, no, I'm spacing out. I can't. That was a lot to take in.
Well, so the way that, I mean, you saw the drawing boards. Like I said, if you guys want to see this, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
But the drawing boards that he put down, and we've seen them before. Like I said, he's posted them. He's posted them. We've seen these kind of pictures before, these drawings, and the way he keeps his consistency, from what it sounds like, is that he not only draws. He not only has the script and has, the scenes basically mapped out, but as he's doing the concept art,
he exceeds it.
Yeah, like in a way he kind of fixes the road as he's going down it, if that makes sense. So like the road's laid out. He knows where it's A to B, but he's like, well, I can make little patch jobs here and there while I'm going down this road. So let me just boom, boom, boom. Let me fix it here. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like art should be something that people put into it because it'll cause a lot of reductions, right? Like Zack Snyder has said before that he's not very into, doing a lot of reshoots or second guessing and stuff like that because as he's going down that road, he's working things out and ensuring that every single angle is covered. Like I said, like he makes sure every single angle is covered. And I think it shows within his work that that he's leagues ahead. But he does like it is a lot to take in, and he does say so much to the point where it's like I told you before we're gonna watch this. Like you can tell, like he speaks about it, but it goes kind of side tangent, and then he'll come back and
it's almost like his mind is like flaring off in different directions. Like because when you tell a story, sometimes people will be like, oh well, I'm trying to tell you about this. Oh, but this reminded me of this. So he's trying to get there, and that was a lot to take in. But yeah, basically it's from. He's fixing it as he's going. So, like, this scene needs to happen with Steppenwolf or whatever. Okay, but how are the Amazonians reacting? Let me draw that out. Let me see what they would say. Like, he's basically mapping it out.
Yeah, I think, like I said, visionary for sure. I think in that aspect, I think that's good on how it creates his work. And, it just shows the extra dedication that he's willing to go through, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So this is where it's gonna start getting a little bit more into Justice League. Kind of talking about a little bit more about his background and what kind of made him be able to get to the point where he felt comfortable for film.
Over the next 10 years, from me being from 25 to 35, I just shot, ton of music videos and a ton of commercials. And really for me that was the real school for me in a lot of ways, because I made every kind of shot I could think of. When I was a director cameraman, I was the DP director, and so when I got Dawn of the Dead, they said you can't shoot the movie, like the directors don't shoot too. And I was like, okay.
Right, we want you in the chair.
You got to focus on the stuff. And I was like, I ended up operating half the movie anyway. Matt Leonetti, who was the DP, would always be like, Zach, you should operate this shot. And I'd be like, what? That's good. Yeah, he's like, he's amazing. He does be like, Zach, you, because like the operator would do something, and I'd be like, the guy should. I remember we had this one shot where the guy had to run and then jump down a manhole, right? And the operator couldn't run back fast enough. And it was supposed to be a handheld shot. So we did this mount where we rigged the camera. I had a monitor like this, and the camera's on me, like pointing backwards. That's awesome. So I ran forward, and then I had to run over the manhole, and then they pulled this plywood away from it so I wouldn't fall in it. And then the hardest part of the shot was I had to tilt up because the camera was tilting down, right? So your brain, it doesn't work. Because you're watching the guy, and then like he jumps down, and you have to go like this, right? So, and I remember, and Matt was like, Zach can do it. Let Zach do it. Because like the operator tried to do it, but he kept tilting down, instead of like you just short circuit.
Right? But by the way,
he's just like a giddy kid. I swear Zack Snyder is just like a
he's just like, man, this is very nice, like, can't believe this is my job type shit.
Yeah, like he's living the dream. So so he has done a lot of commercials, right? He's altogether about 26 commercials and music videos combined. He's done one for NFL, BMW, Budweiser. He's done multiple for Budweiser, Chevy, Lexus, a UPS commercial he's done. He's done music videos for Soul Asylum, Morrissey, Heather Nova, My Chemical Romance. Peter Murphy, Aaron Neville, ZZ Top, and quite a bit more. So he did a lot, and he also did the intro for Dawn of the Dead. So if you guys ever see Dawn of the Dead again and you see the beginning credits, that's all him as well. So he, went on the little side tangent and talked about Dawn of the Dead as well. How do you think commercials and music videos prepared him for that, for like movies?
I'm not sure. Well, okay, for music videos, they can get elaborate. They can get pretty elaborate. And if he's done for My Chemical Romance, I want to look up which one he did, because they kind of have quite a bit of music videos. So depending on which one, they could have been very elaborate. But I'm thinking Black Parade. You know what I mean? You remember the music video?
Yeah, but that wasn't him. No, he made it for. I can tell you right now what it is.
Let me know and then get back to me. But I could imagine it just perfected the craft. How cameras work and things like that. Because they're simple shots, unless you're working for the NFL, in which you want, unless they do elaborate shit for the NFL too.
Yeah, and the music video is called Desolation Row.
Oh, okay.
And this was back in 2009. Like, he's been making music videos since 92. So he's been in the game for a while. He's been, building up his stripes, doing what he has to do. I think he talks about it a little bit. Him doing commercials and music videos. Yeah, he gets elaborate with music videos, but commercials as well. Like, you get all those. Not only do you get all the angles, not only do you get like that style, how to make them look cool type stuff, but you also get a lot of those shots and practice at those shots where it's close-ups. You know what I mean? Because you have car commercials where they have close-ups of their face, they have close-ups of their hands, they have close-ups of their seatbelts, and to get not only different angles of the actor themselves, but also like of the environment, to help tell a story with visuals, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's just different for cameras, because for commercials, you do get the different angles for sure, but they're on a smaller scale, if that makes any sense.
What do you mean?
Like commercials.
Commercials
are just on a smaller scale. So I imagine doing multiple of those, and like you said, like not just getting in the product or the people. You got to do quite a bit for like 10 seconds of a commercial. But yeah.
Yeah,
you gotta imagine it just perfected his craft in a certain way.
Yeah. Able to set the mood, able to, build up whatever tension they want you to feel or happiness in those 30 seconds. Because how long is a commercial? Like 20, 30 seconds?
30 seconds to a minute.
Yeah, so very short amount of time to tell a story. And commercials, if you notice, even though they are just commercials, they tell somewhat of a story. And I think
like,
so.
Oh no, spill. Use the quicker picker rubber type shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What are they doing first? Like, they're over there trying to clean, and the kids are running around. They knock something over, and the mom's like, oh, or whatever, right? No words uttered, but you already know, like, this bitch frustrated. So it shows. I'm telling you, like, a lot of practice shows within his work. I think these next few I think these next few topics are gonna kind of reflect his background and the kind of work that he put into this movie, the Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think this is the part where it starts getting a little bit more, juicier. So if you have any good comments to say as of right now, I suggest you let them out before you start going on your little rants and WB.
I don't rant, man. I don't rant. It's if he brings up things I don't like, we're gonna have to talk about it. That's it.
All right. Here we go. Ready?
Working on a story, so say Kevin Feige pokes his head in the room and says we need Civil War. We go, okay, great. When do we have till? You got a year. All right, we better work fast. And now we get our codified process out. Okay, let's
go back a little bit.
Yeah. It says, like, makeup artists, make sure there's scuffy dirt on the face.
Should be sweaty.
Should be sweaty, right? It's a weird sentence.
But it's true. Like, you focus all of your energy when you start purely on storytelling. We have a codified process that we created, working with the same two writers through all of our Marvel work. So Christopher Marcus, Steve McFeely. And that codified process was made up of a lot of stuff we had learned in television, using a writer's room and using a bunch of creative minds sitting together. We believe in this thing called the mastermind principle, which says that two minds are not doubly better than one, they're exponentially better. Sure. So we're big believers in best idea wins, and we have to be available because we have to be available to each other, so we have to be available to ideas coming from other people. So that process of working on a story, so say Kevin Feige pokes his head in a room and says we need Civil War, we go, okay, great. When do we have till? You got a year. All right, we better work fast, and now we get our codified process out. Okay, let's iterate for 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to talk about what the potential stories are. Then we're going to start to put something down on a piece of paper. It's 3 pages long, right? But it's
all
the
good
story,
stuff,
right?
yeah,
page 1 is Act 1, page 2 is Act 2, page 3 is Act 3. This is where it starts. This is what happens in the middle. This is what happens at the end. This character dies at the end. We understand and agree on that. We can get Kevin in, and he goes, "Okay, great, I like that." Mm-hmm. Then we move to the next phase. So for us, it's very disciplined. When you start on a script with something the scale of Justice League, are you starting from
on Justice
artwork?
League? Justice League was
Okay, before we continue with his response, that sounds like a tedious ass job. What Joe Russo was saying. That sounds so many steps just to get product out, right? Like a year to push out. So I hope that was just an exaggeration, but to be like, oh, you got a year to put out Civil War, it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's there to start moving.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Because that one came out when 15 came out when BVS came out, right?
2016.
Okay, so before that, you had
the movie that they did was Winter Soldier,
yeah.
And that one came out in 2014.
Well, no, because you gotta follow the timeline of the other MCU movies.
Mm-hmm.
So if by this time they're already pumping out 3 movies a year, before Infinity War, they only had like a year, especially since the rumors were going around that to rival BVS, they made Civil War. You know what I'm saying? So that's why that timeline kind of makes sense. You get a year for a movie, and then yeah. So that means not only are you rushing a script and having to put it together, now you have to make it quick, and you have to make sure homie Kevin Feige is okay with it. So if he has to come down to the writing room every week just to be like, hey, what's the update? We got to get Civil War out. What's the update? And then here's what we got. It's not a full script, but this is basically beginning, middle, end. Beginning, we know they has to do with Scarlet Witch. The middle of the big fight breaks up the Avengers, and then the ending with what is it? They're basically broken up.
And it's good. It's good that they, like they said too, is that they kept the 2 same writers for all of their movies that they did. So from Winter Soldier up until Endgame, they had the same writers, and I kind of felt like that's what helped with that rich consistency throughout those movies. A lot of full circle moments that happened was because of that reason, I feel. And I don't know, like you go from having writers that are, that know what they're doing to Rick and Morty writers. And I mean, I guess in a way that's where you can see where the drop in quality went.
It's a revolving door of writers. So you kind of they probably don't keep around the same ones unless you're a director like the Russo Brothers coming back and you're like, they already know their demands.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, yeah, we'll do your movie, but we want these 2 back. We want these crew back or whatever. Because remember when Multiverse of Madness was coming out and then they had Sam Raimi got like 6 CGI workers or whatever. So like Marvel knows what people want and what they need. So they try to accommodate. And with the Russo Brothers, if you want them for every single movie, 2 writers. The same 2 writers. Don't try to give them nothing less, nothing else, because then, you don't know this person. What if, pushback and whatnot?
Yeah, and they look like professionals. They're not going to want to argue with anybody.
Exactly.
They just want somebody they can work with, get the job done, and move forward, right?
Exactly. Especially for a movie that's going to take in a year.
Yeah, a whole year. You don't want no kind of friction in a year.
Exactly.
Chris Terrio and I, after Batman vs. Superman, we had talked about what Justice League would be. We kind of, it's called Dawn of Justice, right? So, and the studio was they wanted Justice League, what was where we were going. And so
you knew you had the connective tissue.
we always had our eye on the Justice League kind of concept, as we were working. And so I believe we had an outline for Justice League that we just kind of generated while we were writing Batman vs. Superman, just kind of like over to the side. Because we wanted to be sure we were supporting this
Right.
long look with what we were writing for Batman vs. Superman. And, there's all this weirdness in Batman vs. Superman anyway that eventually would make its way into Justice League that I was really adamant about, post-apocalyptic or any of that stuff, or I was really like, I really want to do this. When Darkseid destroys Earth, we're going to have 10 years of no Earth. So we should figure out what Batman's doing. Yeah.
We'll continue right now. There's still more.
Yeah.
But it looks like you're getting excited now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he says that him and, Chris Terrio, and I'm pretty sure everybody got the timeline. So we're just going to, go with off the timeline that happened. So he says that him and Chris Terrio basically wrote the script and was already writing it by the end of BVS.
Mm-hmm.
And he even said, too, it's called Dawn of Justice. Now, from rumors saying that the old regime was the one that wanted to call it BVS, but Zack Snyder just wanted to call it Dawn of Justice because it was supposed to be that. It wasn't supposed to be. Of course, Batman versus Superman was supposed to happen. They were gonna fight, but I don't think he would have called it Batman versus Superman for only Batman and Superman going at it for like 10 minutes in the movie, right?
Exactly, because when you put the movies are a product of the whole judge a book by its cover. You put Batman versus Superman at the label, you're expecting them to duke it out the whole movie, not the end. So Dawn of Justice sounds about right. You know what I mean? But now you stuck Superman and Batman there, and that I think that's one of the main critiques of that movie. Where, but you only have them fighting for a few minutes. Okay, yeah, but there's much more world building going on around them, between Lex Luthor, Wonder Woman, and then the Justice League that comes after. Like Batman vs Superman, like them fighting is the footnote. You know what I mean? There's way much more things going on, and that obviously is a studio thing because you basically fucked up your marketing at that point.
Yeah, because I feel like if they would have done Dawn of Justice and then they would have heard, Batman fought Superman in this movie, that would have generated more hype.
It would
than
have
being
translated
like,
way better.
Yeah, because it would have been like, oh man, it wasn't that long, but damn, that's crazy that happened. Versus BVS now we're expecting them to fight a good chunk of time, and no, they only fought for 10 minutes. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think that was an issue too. So like how he said too, he was very adamant about the desert, the post-apocalyptic stuff.
Love that shit.
And there was a lot of he explained it right now, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it a little bit more when I press play right now, but he was very adamant about it, which him saying that he needed to be adamant about it says that there was some pushback about it, right?
Basically, yeah.
So that means that there had to be somebody telling him, hey, like this post-apocalyptic stuff probably won't do too well, right?
Basically, yeah. Which sucks because this is one of my favorite aspects. You know what I mean? Like post-apocalyptic Batman and like Justice League sounds dope as fuck. I don't know what pothead was smoking up at WB to be like, get this shit out of here, but it's one of my favorite things.
I think it's a good aspect. I think it would have been cool to see that happen in live action, but who knows? We'll have to see. But let's keep listening.
Yeah.
In the Road Warrior Earth, what is Batman in Road Warrior? So that was kind of like a big thing to me. That was the thing I really wanted to get to. And so Chris and I worked really diligently, and then to have a document that it wasn't a secret document, but it was kind of our own. There was a lot of it that we constantly were developing. And then right near the end of finishing Batman vs. Superman, when I was kind of like the editing responsibilities had kind of, just diminished a little bit, we really started working, on Justice League. And Chris is a really incredible writer, and he's very beautifully manic in his style. I remember he had like a lot of Diet Coke, a lot of Post-it notes, like the Post-it notes, but they were in this massive baggie. It looked like a drug dealer. It looked like a like kilo of cocaine or something like in his bag. He pulled it out, and I was like, "What is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's the Post-it notes." And then he started to try and
Putting back
reassemble.
up.
Yeah, but it was so it was very, and it's all like Yates quotes and like it's all
Oh, wow.
coolly bizarro. Like none of it. Like you can't look at the Post-it notes and go like, "Oh, cool, this is a note for the first act, like a line of dialogue. This
It's
is
like,
cool."
wait, this goes first.
No,
or
no,
this-
it's completely.
So, yeah, that's cool. And, I'm sure it's a lot to juggle, especially when you're making a cinematic universe, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Hamada was the one greenlighting stuff, but Zach was supposed to be the one who kept track of all this shit, figured out what's going where, what's happening, and you could tell like I said, it translates into his films because what happens at Man of Steel. The ending of Man of Steel is the beginning of BVS, right? What happens in BVS? The ending of BVS is the beginning of his Zack Snyder Justice League.
Yeah.
So you can tell that there was some connectivity there, and there was a lot of back-to-backness with the script.
Yeah.
So him having that script ready to go, having it maybe right at the tail end of BVS, probably already started writing it right and getting it done. I just can't wrap my head around the fact that a hardworking person like that would have walked into so much conflict at the job.
Exactly. You would want someone to map it out and then film it all, basically. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like yes, let me be there behind you to be like, okay, well, this didn't really work out or whatever. But no, the people that were at WB were rushing him and wanting that $1 billion so bad because we're finding out that they're kind of in debt. But like, it really shows you that he was a hardworking dude and he was willing to put it on the table, but they didn't want to wait.
Yeah, and so this next part is going to be kind of interesting. So I want you to listen up for this one.
To the thing we're working on. So weirdly, it's a bizarro process. I love it, but it's not. And when I write, I don't use that process at all. Like I have a similar process to you guys. I have 3 other writers I write with, very specific, very like note cardy, very
Right. In a room.
on a
Let's talk
dry
about
erase.
it. Interesting idea. Oh, that could be the end of Act 1. Let's put
100%.
that on a card and stick it
100%.
here. 2 days later, nope, that's the midpoint, actually.
Yeah.
Let's move it to the
Exactly.
midpoint because we need more setup.
Like suddenly, like that idea that everybody loved just keeps getting pushed over, and then it just falls off.
Falls off the thing.
And you're like, okay, but look what else it gave us. It gave us all this other cool stuff. So yeah, no, and then, and so the script for Justice League did evolve out of that. Now, I'll be honest that when the script, what happened with Justice League is we had the original script was much darker and weirder. And then when Batman vs. Superman came out and the studio was like, it's not funny enough. People want funnier movies. They want funny stuff in it. We did go back and do a big kind of lightened the movie overall.
How dare this dog speak to us like children?
And I would
That was their edit. That was their edit.
That was not us. That was them.
They edited that, and that was a clip from Zack Snyder. Very well placed, in my opinion, Anthony and Joe Russo. Good one. That was actually pretty funny. So,
Funnier movies.
well, and you've seen that, right? You've seen the knee jerk reaction that happened when BVS came out and everybody said it was too dark, right? Marvel was thriving. They had the funnier movies. Deadpool came out. That's around the time Suicide Squad was coming out as well, and that's when they went through massive reshoots. Still fighting for the Ayer cut today. Went through those massive reshoots because they basically wanted Deadpool. And so because of that, they came up with a butchered monstrosity that was the Suicide Squad. And then they proceeded to do it again with Zack Snyder. And though he did, let's say he did make it funnier, because we've seen a lot of his concept art before. They said, I believe they said there was a concept art where Batman was like in a cave full of parademons, and it was supposed to be like I think Zach said before, like it was supposed to be like this horror kind of scene, and they just said no, it's too scary, right? That I mean, WB even said that Stephen Wolf's design was too scary, and so they changed it in the theatrical version of the Justice League.
So disgusting.
So WB's meddling was there, and he had to deal with that for a long time.
Yeah, from the jump. Well, not from the jump. I think they waited to see how Man of Steel went, and then they were like, "All right, we got kind of a hit with Superman. Do it again." And then BVS comes out, and they're like, "It's not funny," which is so fucking stupid, so stupid. And then, well, you know, we know how Justice League turned out. Oh man, so gross, so gross.
I think a lot of the reason is going to be explained in this next scene. So I'll hold my tongue because I want to talk, but it's because I seen the video and you haven't, so I just don't want to be jumping the gun. So I'll let you listen to the next part.
I would say that Justice League, my cut of Justice League, is in between I always preserved some of the more intense stuff that I shot anyway.
Yep.
I thought that in retrospect, they would maybe want. Making sure I, of course, had what was on the page, but we had this other script. I think in the original script, Lois and Batman got together, briefly. And there was like this whole, there was this whole other thing that everyone was like, oh my God, you can't do that. So we were.
By the way, I love that. I wish you did do that.
Yeah, because Superman was dead. I was like, and Lois is a pretty amazing person. So like.
But it also brings her into the story in a way. It's complex,
she's
it's surprising.
Not really, her part in Justice League is really, we had written it, especially since I had Amy, and Amy's like a genius. I really felt like we should lean on Amy, because she's just a great actress and like a force of nature. And so, and I just thought it really felt like and then I love the idea of like setting up this sort of concept. It's sort of like when you're, in a movie like where the husband goes off to war and he's dead and the wife moves on and then the husband appears. Yeah. Like, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine. Like,
how do you deal with that?
Yeah, how do you deal with that? And that was kind of what I
emotional,
was super into that concept, that, oh no, Superman can be brought back to life.
Clark. Please.
So now what happens with this? And it was that Lois was like, I'm still in love with Superman. You were kind of a thing, but then at that point, Batman had already fallen in love with Lois and was like, okay, now I'm like.
It's brilliant. I want to see that. I love that. Yeah.
One day.
That's super cool.
But no, but.
You heard that?
They did.
He said one day.
Oh, well.
That's not what you heard?
No.
Now I'm like.
It's brilliant. I want to see that. I love that. Yeah.
One day.
That's super cool.
But no.
Yeah.
I caught that the first time, and I was just like, what does he mean by that? By one day. Cryptic, I think. No, but so like I said, you could tell how much the script evolved. A Batman and Lois Lane romance was supposed to bloom, bring Amy Adams. I personally think that would have helped out the story a little bit more with her character. I mean, but like I said, he is one of those, and this is where I feel like his past experience kind of helped him, where he showed the pain that Lois Lane was going through without having to say a word. Right? Like, she was there every single day at his grave in the movie, like, and they utilized her as much as they could, but they could have utilized her a lot more. And like I said, this just shows you how everything just got changed up from one moment being this tragedy where Superman's dead to, oh no, we gotta put a Justice League together and find everybody.
I think that's the one thing I wasn't vibing with too much, the concept of them being together. I know that would have given her more character and stuff, but I think she does perfect in this. You know what I mean? Like, on her own. Like, the first shot of well, I say first shot, but after the sequence of him dying, we open to her, I think, right? Something like that. And then you're like, well, what is she doing? Yeah, she sees him every day. She still loves him. She hasn't moved on. It takes Martian Manhunter. Spoilers for Zack Snyder's Justice League if you haven't seen it. But what takes her to move on is Martian Manhunter, and then she's ready to move on, and then that's when the Justice League hatches the plan to bring him back. So she's ready. She's making her way to his grave, and then she's like, well, this is my last time. Like, I'm not ready to see you again and whatnot. And then the thing happens with Superman, and she's there. I find that so much better than Batman falling in love with her, and then in Justice League he brings her in as like a secret weapon. Like, the fact that she was there on her own and everything like that organically makes more sense than that.
Well, yeah. Well, and like I said, that's where he did his little spin and was able to put her in the movie and show that emotion. I mean, even that scene where he still got people baffled where that pregnancy test is there. Like nobody knows about that. So he did a good job visually, but I think acting wise, I think it would have made for a more dramatic and more spectacle from the actors. I guess when it comes to delivering dialogue and to their facial expressions, if it would have been Ben Affleck and that in between.
Yeah.
And I think it would have made for a little bit because one thing that always kind of tipped me off was when Superman comes back and he's angry at Batman, right? Like, oh, you killed me type shit. Like, what the fuck? Like, you were the reason why I died or whatever. When he first came back, and I was like, well, they had shook and made up and they were fighting the same monster. So he just forgot all about that and just remembers the point where, they were whooping each other's ass. Like, if it would have been, oh, Lois Lane and Batman had a love triangle and then he would have fought like that, then it would have made more sense and it would have been like, okay, well, there's a reason why he's upset. But I think that was just one thing for me in the movie of Zack Snyder's Justice League that didn't make sense. Like, why did he wake up angry when he died as friends?
I think that probably has to do with the mother box. I think the mother box corrupting him was kind of the thing that pushed him there, and then it took Lois to snap him out of it, and then it kind of leads to the future timeline where there is no Lois, there is no one to take him from a dark side, so he's just going ham now, and then he blames Bruce even more because we find out that Bruce couldn't keep her alive or safe. So I mean, I think that all kind of plays out.
Kind of. I mean, at the same time, I kind of find it to be kind of a little weird, and I guess that's kind of like the one couple hiccups that happened within the movie. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's his true vision, but it's not his true vision. You know what I mean? Because he had a true vision that they said, hey, you can't do that, and he had to make a different vision that he wanted to do, and this was the outcome.
If it would have been darker, then shit, I would have I still would have loved it. You know what I mean? Like, I love it this way, but to find out that there was darker versions of it, I would have loved to see that too. Yeah,
it would have been interesting. It would have been interesting for sure. But let's hear what they have to say.
And it's just a classic studio Hollywood process. In their defense, they only can react to what they react to.
Which is a great point about reacting. It's an interesting thing to say because we talk about this all the time. Artists lead innovation and corporations follow it, right? And so a corporation coming in and saying it's not funny enough is going to be behind the curve of wherever this is heading. Audiences want to be surprised, right? Audiences don't want the same thing they had last week. You give them chocolate ice cream every day for a week. By day 6, they're going to throw it back in your face and say, we've had enough of this shit.
And it's exactly as you say. They wanted a funny movie 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Just to be that glacial in your movement. You're not going to...
They were on board with the concept and the vision and the direction you were going, and now they want to see the completion of that, right?
Yeah.
Rather than, let's retrofit it or let's try to restructure it, and
But also that point of view is that we talk about too, is that's being reactive to what's currently happening out there. And the big wins to be had in storytelling and movie making is when you're bringing something to the table that surprises people, right? That's where.
So, and that's exactly what WB was doing, right? They were being reactive.
Mm-hmm.
They were, they were seeing how well Marvel was doing, and they just wanted, and they showed that. I think they showed that since the very beginning of the day, that since the DCU was rolling out, everything was all about, we need to get up to Marvel standard.
Basically, yeah, which is really, really weird. We knew from the jump that they wanted that. You know what I mean? The MCU was coming hot after second phase, coming into the third with after Age of Ultron or whatever the fuck. So, like, they were ready to go. By 2013, you had Man of Steel. By 2014, you had Age of Ultron. They were ramping it up. We got BVS 2016. We got Suicide Squad 2016. Wonder Woman by 2017, something like that. And then, so you're rolling it out. But the heads of Warner Brothers are like, well, we're not getting the results like Marvel's getting the results. Marvel, by that point, was coming up on 10 years, because 2018 to 2008. So they're like, well, we're not even at the capacity of making $1 billion. We're mad jealous that these movies are making $1 billion. Zach, where's our $1 billion? They didn't want to wait for that. So of course they're going to be reactive. They're just like, well, we want this funnier. We want whatever this and that. When Zach was probably just like, no. You know what I mean? Or I'll tweak it to make it kind of funny, but I'm keeping my original ideas. Mm-hmm. They're just like, yeah, no, he's giving us too much pushback. And then unfortunately, he had to leave, and that's when Joss Whedon showed up. Yay.
Yeah, because it's true, man. You could tell they always wanted to be Marvel, and since the jump, it was always let's follow.
Yeah, no. Following the MCU is kind of what got them here now. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the
or
thing.
Trying to follow the MCU.
Oh, MCU made a spy movie. Let's make a spy movie. Oh, they made a team up movie. I want our team up movie. Oh, their movie's hilarious. We need to make our movie hilarious. But they never understood that they had a strength, right? WB had a strength. Their strength was they could say, fuck them kids. They could give us that, don't get me wrong. I understand a lot of people were saying, like, oh, Zack Snyder's movies were too gritty. They were too, too serious, whatever. I get that. If you can find a good balance where you can have good comedy and, maybe a bright movie, but like with the same kind of effects and kills that, maybe the Suicide Squad kind of brought, then, or, same thing with Man of Steel. Like, he didn't have to get graphic with it, but you saw when Zod and them were there, people were going to get hurt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
BVS, it was like, oh, a lot of people got hurt in Man of Steel. What are you going to do? Oh, we're going to let people know everything's empty. The warehouse is empty. The port is empty. Blah, 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 it's empty. It's like, okay, we get it. And that you could tell every single move that WB made was a reactionary move. Mm-hmm. It was never a first, I'm going to do my first chess move and see how you react. No.
Yeah.
You did it already. I'm going to do it after you, and I'm going to try to. And when you try to do things with haste, it just comes out sloppy, lazy, and just bad. You can't do that, and that's what ultimately fucked his vision. I think.
Well, not just his, like all of their movies, besides the few bangers that were like the first Wonder Woman or Aquaman and the first Shazam.
But even Wonder Woman wasn't even like without struggle, because even the third act was redone because they said the third act wasn't spectacle enough, so they changed it, and that's why everybody when it comes to the third act, everybody's confused. Everybody's like, oh, Wonder Woman 1 is great up until the third act, and it's like, why is that? Because WB was like, hey, there's no big final CGI boss battle here. We need you to put one in. You know what I mean? And that's reactionary to Marvel.
And it's weird to see that because before the they decided to ramp it up and go for the cinematic universe route. They were doing single stories, kind of like how Marvel was, but they had a decade before that. So you had Ghost Rider, Spider-Man with Tobey, the few Punisher movies, Blade, a couple others. Around the time 2000, when did Batman Begins come out? 2006?
08, I think. Oh no,
No, that's
Dark Knight came out 08. Yeah, 06.
See, so we see that one is kind of gritty, has the tone, kind of funny, like it has, like it's not like MCU like ha fart joke funny, but like he made a like Alfred is being sarcastic, like that line where he's like,
it's subtle comedy.
What's the point of all that weightlifting if you can't even pick up wood or something like that?
Yeah.
Like that's funny, you know what I mean? Like it's gonna get a little chuckle out of you. It's not gonna be like MCU like fart joke kind of funny, you know what I mean? So
smother baby Hitler.
like, yeah. So, and then that rolls around, and then 2008 rolls around. You get the hit that is the Dark Knight, and then the third one comes out, and you're like, well, damn, this is nothing like the second one. But they have that dark tone that goes for them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think it's like a Zack Snyder thing, or not Zack Snyder, like a DC is gritty thing. I think it's a Zack Snyder thing. People just don't like him for some reason. Controversial? Is that controversial? I don't know.
Probably. Yeah, I think he is kind of hated on, but like I said, not without reason. I mean, when you're one of the better ones to do it in the game, you're gonna get hated on, right? When you're doing good, people are not gonna like that.
Basically.
So I mean, if there's people hating on him, he's doing something right. But let's go ahead and make it through the rest of this. He's gonna talk a little bit more in depth about what he thinks on TV, and it's gonna fuel a theory for me.
Okay.
The big wins.
I mean, that's why I think where we've ended up with, I think right now we're in a really golden age of TV, in the sense that like TV shows are much better at being,
100%.
at being like showing you something not only that you've never seen before, or catching you off balance, or like making a turn that you didn't see coming.
They're riskier. Yeah.
They're way riskier and way kind of like Euphoria, for instance. I was watching, and the show is just
Unbelievable.
Like that show shouldn't exist. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I just think that's the kind of thing. Like I watch that show and I go, this movie would never get made.
Yeah.
Like,
Never get made.
This movie can't exist.
By the way, it would have, because of the sort of corrupt environment that exists around the release of films. And by that, I mean, a toxic environment of like box office pundits and all the horseshit that goes into a release of a movie, that if something doesn't hit a predetermined target by I don't know who, then it didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't open, and now it's going to struggle, and it has a different path it has to follow. A show like
Nobody's saying
Euphoria, if
that
it were a
about shows,
movie,
yeah.
1/20th of the people would have seen it as a film versus a show. Maybe even
Yeah, it's like
less.
Squid Game. It's Squid
Right.
Game too.
Okay,
Like
yeah.
you can imagine Squid Game coming here as a movie would be, that's art house.
Yeah.
Maybe
100%.
no one. And now it's like hundreds of millions of people, and like, because it's exactly Euphoria and Squid Game taking you to a place you just there's no way you have any idea like where you're going or what's happening.
He has a point. TV does do a lot better than movies. I mean, we talked about this in another episode the other day, and this is kind of where my theory is going to come in right now. But what happens when a movie's not successful in theaters? It gets a TV show. Where does it end up? On a streaming platform somewhere.
Yeah.
Because TV can do what movies can't. TV can explore these things because there's so much TV out there. People can pick and choose what they're going to sit down and watch. Now, I think another reason why they do that is because there's less risk. It's low risk, all reward, right? Because if you get a small budget, let's take a CW show, right? You get a small budget CW show, but you make it into a superhero movie or a superhero show like The Flash. You're going to get people to watch it because The Flash is attached to it, right? Now, whether or not the CGI is good or bad, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, what are people going to say? It's a TV show.
It's a TV show.
So it's going to look like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everybody at home kind of understands, like, hey, if I want basic stuff that's going to feed me, I'm going to watch TV. But now TV is evolving to something it's not basic anymore. Now it's more edgy. You got more, more boundaries that people are willing to cross. Like you is a show that would have never been made into a movie. That is a stalker show. You know how many people would be at the movie theaters right now talking about, oh, you guys are making a profit off stalkers and, whatever. Like, that would have never been made. And they're right, because at the box office is all about money, and apparently that's where the cheddar comes in,
And yeah, for sure, because TV shows can explore the things that movies can't. You know what I mean? You can make a 4-hour movie, and you still leave things kind of tethered. You know what I mean? Or untethered, if that makes sense. Unfinished stuff. Set up a sequel, something. A sequel that never gets made, type shit. You know what I mean? While with a show, you can do all of the shit you want. You can talk about, like Euphoria, like you said, that's a really good example, actually. Euphoria, all the ones that center around problematic things and explore the darker side of the world type shit are the kind that would never get made into a movie. You couldn't make a movie about teenagers having sex and doing drugs and that type of shit.
Yeah.
Like, you can touch upon it in a movie, but you'd never get that in a full blown movie. You would not have gotten that scene of the dad and what he does to people in that show. So like, you'd never would have gotten that with HBO and shows like that. You can get that little pushback, and same with Netflix. They don't go into full detail, but with you, like, you do get some grittiness and shit like that, and you get time to explore. And they're kind of like little movies. People want to say that, but with each episode being an hour, you're watching around 6, 7, 8 hours worth of content, more than a movie. And that's because they can explore that. They can choose. They can go in depth on a character. You can waste a whole episode on one character, build them up, see where they are, as long as it continues the story. Otherwise, that's filler. But we don't have to get that deep. It's just shows can really dig that deep. And then, people sometimes are just like, well, I don't want to see a movie. I don't want to go to the movies to see this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So why would they waste the money? And then boom, that's $10 out of the people's pockets that made it, because no one's seeing it. It's all about the audience, and most audiences just don't check out movies like that nowadays.
Well, audiences don't check out movies like that because they feel like movies are, with so many movies that go into cinema, I think it's like, oh, we're a group of people trying to go watch this. Whereas TV, there's so much TV that, you don't have to watch that. You could just change the channel and go somewhere else. You know what I mean? And I just think that helps with the TV experience, and with obviously being at the box office and being in a movie theater, like, you're very limited. You have so many options to watch, and if you feel like going to the movies and you don't have a movie to watch, then that's where the anger comes in. Like, oh, I can't watch this one because there's, and this ain't me. There is people out there, they'll be like, oh, I can't watch this one because it's there's Mexicans in this one, or whatever, you know what I mean? Or they'll say, oh, there's woke ideology in this one, or, oh, this one's too conservative, I don't want to watch this one. You know what I mean? Like, it's very hard to do that, where, like, on TV you could just be like, well, I want to watch this. Oh, I don't feel like watching this, I'm going to flip this. And then you'll probably get the one person that'll look at it and be like, what the fuck is this? What are people watching nowadays? Flip changes the channel, you know what I mean? Like, it's that easy. And I think that's why TV has it easier.
Well, that's why, because there's more people watching TV than movies. And it's more of a thing of, like, what's the general consensus? What are you into? You know what I mean? What are you into? Crime thrillers? Are you into like action things? Are you into crime shows like NCIS, things like that? There's more variety, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting if you're into crime, if you're into psychological things, or if you're into, whatever else. There's Hannibal, there's NCIS, like I said. There's a bunch of mystery shows. Netflix has a bunch of shows where if you just want that one thing, You're gonna watch that one thing. How like, you want to watch a cooking show? There are 700 cooking shows on Netflix. Like
hella cooking shows.
yeah, so like it just there is more variety in that sense.
It makes sense. And this is gonna be kind of like the last little portion. The rest of it's kind of just him going on his little rant. So this one's gonna basically discuss why it wasn't a TV show. Now I know that a lot of people probably seen that little promo image where it's like the Cube and you see Ben Affleck's Batman in the Cube and Arthur Curry and Ezra Miller all within in the silver cube or whatever, and it was supposed to be the opening for Zack Snyder's Justice League for every single episode, but he explains why it wasn't turned into a TV show.
Okay.
In the chaptered version at home, I was like, you know what? Don't
Don't do it.
Let's not have the intermission on
Right.
this version.
Yeah.
Because it just. Plus, because it's a chaptered movie, you can always just stop it at any of the chapters if you wanted to. So that was the way I thought about it. Originally, we had talked about doing it as it was going to be 6 parts released separately. But then there was like some, legal rules about like,
What you could do
everyone
with
thought it was a TV show.
cast
suddenly,
contracts
yeah,
and all that stuff.
You had
Yeah.
to pay everyone like 6 times, and everyone was like, don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Right.
like, okay.
But it could have fit that format.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
The visual components of your movies are so exhilarating that it gets a lot of attention, right? Will you talk a little bit about how you approach your process with actors, introducing them to the story, what you're trying to do?
Yeah. One of the actors that I had just a great experience working with was when I first worked with Billy Crudup on Watchmen, and I learned a lot from him just about his process. I'd always drilled down. I was always like asking him about every little detail and about like the way he approaches scene work and all that, because I really respected, when I would watch the way that he was really letting the material like shape his performance in a really beautiful way, it really made me I was really impressed by it. And so I really, I had done it a couple times up to that point, but everything I had done was pretty stylized. I mean, Sarah Polley is also an amazing actress, and
Yeah.
I got a lot from her, and that was like my first movie. But I felt like, so with Billy, it was this process of like, I had a pretty strict sort of view. It goes back to sort of like the way I draw and the way this is.
So, yeah. So WB said 6 episodes. We got to pay him 6 times. We broke.
That's not happening.
Yeah, no. If it's a movie, it is a movie. Okay. So yeah. It was supposed to be a TV show, and there was a lot of rumbling saying that it was going to be a 6-parter. And after that came out, and they were like, no, it'll be a 4-hour movie. And you'll just, we'll put chapters in it, like you said, to kind of, label it and let people know, like, hey, this is the end of that, this is the end of here, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It would have been cool to see it as a TV show, because at least then I think it would have built up suspense and maybe been less intimidating for people to watch it, a 4-hour runtime. Not a lot of people are going to go in there and be like, oh, they're split up in chapters. Let me go ahead and, pause it whenever I want. No, people are just going to just hear the runtime and be like, oh, it's 4 hours. And it's like, I'm good.
This is too much for me, even though I sat through 3-hour Endgame. Too much movie. It doesn't make much sense. I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as a TV show.
No, you don't think so?
No.
I think it would have built up suspense, especially because you kind of already knew where it was going because of Justice League. So I felt like it would have created like that week-to-week conversation where it's like, is this going to change up or is this going to change up? You know what I mean? I think that would have done a lot of build-up.
No, man, I don't think so. Cause that okay, you're not a big TV person, and I know you probably would have watched this on television, but it wouldn't hit the same watching Man of Steel, BVS, and then you got to watch 6 episodes of a TV show. That doesn't hit. That doesn't hit as good. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it would have been an inconsistency, but if that was the only way we would have gotten it, then I would have been okay with it. But we didn't. We got a 4-hour cut.
Like the show it wouldn't have enjoyed it as much if it wasn't a cinematic like that. Because I mean, 4 hours of a movie doesn't feel like a lot of time. 6 hours
You
of
said
a TV show.
You said 4 hours of a movie doesn't feel like a lot of time.
No,
My boy, that is half a work day. What are you talking about?
no, it doesn't feel like that.
4 hours feels like 4 hours.
No. When you watched Avatar, it didn't feel like 3 hours.
No, because they kind of made it work, but it's still a lot of time. Oh, you're just talking about like if the movie made you feel the runtime?
Well, like in general, like yeah, you know what I mean. Like
I think
you
Zack
could've-
Snyder's Justice League. I think there was a few scenes that could have been cut out. I think
fake fan over here. No,
I
But
feel like
let
his
me-
his
let
his
me-
I feel like his cut could have used something.
Before you finish all that, let me just finish my thought real quick.
No.
Because
No,
that's not where I'm going with that.
Okay,
I'm
go.
just saying like the 4 hours would have hit differently because you're binge watching a show. You're watching something that has an hour episodes, 10 episodes each. You're telling me you're gonna sit through 6 of those episodes, be like, 6 episodes, I'm kind of mellowing out. This show kind of dried me out. You've been watching for 6 hours. That would feel a lot longer than a 4-hour movie. Like that would drag on a lot longer.
6 hours. How do you turn 4 hours to 6 hours?
If you would have made the TV show 6 parts, that's basically what you're doing.
You couldn't make it to 6 hours. It would have just been cut up into like maybe 30 minutes a pop. Yeah, that would have been 30 minutes a pop.
No, because between the intermissions of the movie, it's longer than that. He'd be cutting it up 6 times.
Obviously, every episode would be completely different because I think every chapter is like, I think the longest chapter in all 6 chapters is, I think the longest one is the 3rd chapter, and that one's like 45 minutes or something. So it's like, it would have been fine the way that it was. I wouldn't have been 6 hours. What he's going to add more? No, he would just have to break it up, and I think the 6th part would have been the epilogue with it. It would have been a lot. No, I think that was...
It wouldn't have hit as a TV show.
I think it would have, and I think it would have helped kind of cut the fat a little bit because there was a little bit of fat on Zack Snyder's Justice League, like I was saying before I was really interrupted.
You mean before you interrupted me?
Like, you know, I would say the part where that girl's singing and holding Arthur or Aquaman's sweater as he dives away could have been cut. I think maybe, though it was nice, Superman going to Alfred and saying like and talking to him, that could have probably been cut too. Like, there was a few scenes that could have probably been cut down, but like that just kind of slowed down the movie in my opinion, even though there was a lot of slow-mo already.
No, I disagree.
See, that's just because you write this man's meat without question. You got to question why you're writing his meat sometimes.
That's dumb.
But he's a visionary. I think he's great. I think, you know, what he did with Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I like a ton of his other work. Sucker Punch. What other movies did he make? I recently watched the Guardians of Ghoul, the Owl movie. I don't know if you know this, but he made an animated Owl movie.
Oh, I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. I watched that one recently.
Pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Haven't seen it.
He makes a lot of great movies. I think he's a great director. Any gripes with this man? You don't have any beef? You don't have anything to say? I mean, you always say something about James Gunn, so if you're not saying nothing about him, then that just says a lot.
He's a nice dude. What can you say? What can you really say about him? It's not like he's scummy. It's not like he does shady shit. He's like a genuine dude. Literally, how can you hate this man? The first thing he talked about in this thing was how much he loved art and how it translates into his film. It feels like he's a genuine dude trying to do genuine shit, but people hate him. I can't do that. I don't find a reason to hate this man.
That's true. It kind of sucks. I hate it when people look for a reason to hate. Though everybody has flaws, and I do recognize his flaws, and I think you should too, because you saying that you don't think that there's any fat in Zack Snyder's Justice League completely says that you don't acknowledge his flaws just yet. But I think as a filmmaker, he does have his flaws, and I think he's at a spot in his life where now he's doing really good, right? He has the Army of the Dead franchise going on over there. He has the Rebel Moon franchise going on over there at Netflix as well. So he's doing good. You know what I
for
mean?
sure.
So what I was saying about my theory as well was, since he was talking about TV and how things can happen that don't really happen in movie theaters can happen on TV. And then right after that, or right before that, he had literally had said one day about the whole, hopefully seeing the rest of the story iterated.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a sell to Netflix move or what? Are we gonna hear an announcement at SnyderCon?
Oh man, that would be nice.
It's this Friday,
Is it?
April 28th.
Damn, that's when Return of the Jedi comes to movie theaters again. Very big stuff happening, but that would be nice. I would be fine with that. That'd be dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to reiterate, we're not advocating. I think it's a long shot, but it doesn't
It's
hurt.
a fucking Hail Mary.
It doesn't hurt to ask though. What if they're like, sure, like who knows?
Let me get the Justice League movie, the Zack Snyder way.
So yeah, I think it's I think this interview is interesting. I know that there will be a part 2, and we will be probably discussing that one as well.
For sure.
Anything else before we close this one out?
No, not really. No.
Covered everything.
Pretty good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. With that being said, if there's anything on here that we missed, anything about this interview that you felt that we should have talked about but we didn't, anything that we should have probably went more in depth about, any movies you want us to review, if you guys want this series to continue and want us to keep talking more about these directors, not just Zack Snyder, I feel like we went easy on him because he's such a likable dude. Maybe if we get a different director and probably hammer him a little bit. Let us know if you guys want to see that. Josh, go ahead and let them know where they can let us know.
If they ever decide to have James Gunn on this show, I'm fucking.
I'm burning YouTube to the ground.
But Twitter, TikTok, Instagram at FilmBros Podcast. We post when new episodes are up. You can let us know about any movies or news you want us to cover, or if you want us to react to more things like this. Again, it's a whole show, so they got hella directors talking about the craft and shit like that. So we could totally do more of this if you guys are down for that. If you want to listen to us on the go, Spotify and Apple Podcasts at FilmBros Podcast. If you want to support us in a big way, Zippy Stream at FilmBros Podcast. All it takes is a name and an email. You get our full catalog, and with that email, you get updates of when new episodes drop. So why wouldn't you want to be the first to listen? And go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube, because we do have videos coming soon at FilmBros Podcast.
Yeah, with that being said, we'll talk to you guys on the next one.
Talk to you guys later.